So guys, if you already haven't done so, please subscribe to the channel and please hit the like button on this video. So guys, in this next story, two missing boys from London have been found after a raid at a drug house in Hertfordshire where they had been used to sell heroin and crack cocaine for a set of twin brothers involved in County Line's drug dealing supply. Officers from Operation Orochi conducted the raid on the address before detaining twin brothers Omar and Malik Aziz, 24, from their home address in Streatham on January 18, 2022. Police seized a mobile phone from Malik, which was found to be the number used for a prominent Hatfield drugs line. It had been directing children to supply drugs and to advertise the sale of heroin and crack cocaine. A pair of hood-rich gloves was also seized from Malik, which linked him to a bag found at the home address which contained a firearm and 8 rounds of ammunition. Footage was found on his phone of him with a gun, and DNA of the identical twins was also found on the small, unloaded, self-loading pistol. CCTV footage recovered from the home address of Malik and Omar Aziz showed the two missing children, who were 14 and 15, attending the premises prior to going missing. There was another man, Samir Mustafa, who's 24. He was identified as the person who was physically transporting the children to and from the address in Hatfield while he was disqualified from driving. He was arrested the day after the twin accomplices after being located in the vicinity of Westminster. More than £2,000 in cash was seized from the address, and Samir Mustafa's driving licence was also seized, along with a zombie knife. Met Police believed that they would have been supplied the drugs by the twin drug dealers at their home address before continuing with the drugs for onward sale. The two children were not prosecuted and instead referred to children's services from respective local authorities and the single competent authority national referral mechanism. Detective Constable Deck James, the investigating officer, said County Line's drug dealers exploit young and vulnerable people to facilitate their drug supply. They groom them, and they hope that by using vulnerable children as drug runners, they will shield themselves from identification and prosecution by law enforcement. This is because frequently they exploit persons too scared to assist police. They said drill music was also used to glorify their criminal activities, and I hope this sentence sends out a message that we will not tolerate the exploitation of children nor the supply of drugs. We will pursue those involved, irrespective of whether the victim assists the police or not. The additional recovery of a loaded firearm associated with these perpetrators reflects the intractable association between drug supply and violence. So all three men were sentenced at Kingston Crown Court. So Malik Aziz, he was sentenced to 9 years imprisonment after he pleaded guilty to conspiracy to supply crack and possession of a firearm. Omar Aziz from Streatham was sentenced to 3 years and 2 months, and Samir Mustafa was sentenced to 2 years and 3 months imprisonment. All three were also issued with a 10-year criminal behaviour order with conditions which include not making, participating in and or publishing any material inciting gang-related violence, any music videos, and not to be in the company of any persons ages 16 or under without the express permission of their parents or legal guardians. And guys, in this next story, two men who beat a father of one to death in a flurry of kicks, punches and stamps have been locked up for life after being found guilty of murder. Lee Hogg and Terry Dalton launched the vicious attack when a night of drinking and drug taking spiraled into the murder of Carlos Boyce, may he rest in peace, following an argument about cocaine. The pair were also found guilty of battering another man unconscious with a vodka bottle when he tried to stop them attacking his friend inside the Middlesbrough flat. So Mr. Hogg, who was described as a big bully during the trial, took offence at Mr. Spencer standing up to him when he tried to tell him what he could do in his own home. Teesside Crown Court heard how Dalton lured Mr. Boyce into the hallway before the two men launched a savage attack on the 36-year-old, punching, kicking and stamping on their victim before hitting him with a piece of broken sink and hosing him down with hot water. They then attacked the other man, pinning him to the floor and smashing a vodka bottle into his head before eventually leaving the flat in November the 11th last year. Sentencing the pair, Judge Howard Crossan described Hogg being in a belligerent mood when he turned up to supply drugs to Mr. Spencer's home before the night descended into fatal violence. He said, "You both encouraged Mr. Boyce into the hallway, and there, and in the bathroom, he was subjected to a determined and persistent beating involving stamping, kicking, blows with a hoover pipe and a large piece of the broken sink pedestal. Carlos Boyce was left with dreadful head injuries, and if you care to check, he was still alive throughout your assault on him. As he lay still alive, you hosed him down with scalding water from the shower. Hogg was jailed for a minimum of 21 years, while Dalton was told he would serve a minimum of 20 years for the murder of Mr. Boyce and for inflicting GBH on the other man. The judge said the attack was persisted with over a long period, and it is known that Mr. Boyce was alive for at least 1 or 2 hours after suffering the head injuries and alive while he was doused with scalding water. For much of the attack, you were attacking a defenceless man. Neither of you received any injury, a fact relied upon in your defence, but in truth reinforced the one-sided nature of the beating. So once again, rest in peace, Carlos Boyce, and my condolences go out to your family. And in a news story coming from Reading Ways, 2 county lines dealers who flooded Reading with substantial quantities of Class A drugs and bullied vulnerable drug users have been jailed. Pedro, Maura and Haida Fernandez ran a drugs line called LJ and Pablo, which ran drugs from London to the town, the prosecutor said. Police obtained warrants and raided the dealers' homes on August the 18th last year. The prosecutor told how just over 1 kilo of cocaine was among the drugs seized at Moira's house. Diamorphine and cannabis was also seized, along with burner phones and paraphernalia used to cut drugs. Moira was found with £3,875 in cash, and Fernandez was found with £130. The prosecutor said these are substantial quantities of Class A drugs with a street value of around £219,500. There is also evidence in this case of a degree of exploitation of vulnerable persons and also a degree of exercising control of others in drug-related activity. A short video was shown of the defendants bullying to an extent the drug user. The court heard Fernandez of London and Moore of London had both admitted dealing. Fernandez had pleaded on the basis that he only got into drug dealing to pay off a debt he owed and that he was in personal danger at times while street dealing. Moore had been diagnosed with PTSD, depression and anxiety, the court heard. So in sentencing, the recorder said drugs of the nature of heroin and crack cocaine are a scourge on our society. The drugs themselves and the activities surrounding them lead to criminality, mental health problems and antisocial behaviour, not just for users, but for those who live around them. Your conduct contributes to the undermining of communities and severe damage to lives and well-being of those who take drugs and the community they live in. So the judge sentenced Fernandez to 3 years in prison for being concerned to supply Class A drugs and conspiracy to supply Class A drugs. And Maura was jailed for 4 years and 10 months as the court heard he had been in possession of a greater quantity of the Class A drugs and had also been dealing cannabis. So guys, there's a number of stories coming from the streets of the UK. It's your boy GT. Keep it locked, keep it real.